listening to Smashing the Party. This is your host, Nate Baumberger.
Welcome to Smashing the Party. My name's Nate. This is Nightcap. The good and the bad. What am I talking about? The good and the bad. What could I talking about that's good? What could I be talking about that's bad? Well, if you really follow this show and you turn on your notifications, you get every single live. You know I did a pop-up live this weekend on Saturday, and it was before everything happened, and I made the statement. It was about 12 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube. Nobody's watched it. Trust me. It's got no views. But I made this statement and in the case that finally right now Trump isn't sucking out the oxygen in the room, and we have the time and the ability to keep on focusing on Project 2025. And it was working, and there was a moment, and I said this very instant, this moment, this snapshot in time. Right now, if I'm a political consultant, I'm concerned about this moment because people are able to take the time to compare the RNC platform to Project 2025 to Mein Kampf or whatever you want to talk about. So, but again, that snapshot in time quickly went out, and of course, we know what happened over the weekend. There was an assassination attempt on former President Trump. Now, I hate to say this, but I realize that the left is as crazy as the right when I look at my timeline and people are denying what reality is and suggesting that it was all staged and everything else. And I'm sure that people watch this show are going to be pissed off thinking the same thing. I'm not going to say, to argue that something so tragic that happened was staged is just as bad as Alex Jones. I do not believe that it was a heist or it was a fake out or a false flag. I think it was a real attempt. And, I am against any kind of political violence, especially the type of political violence that results in the hurt or the pain for someone else. If there's political violence that's just violent against property, perhaps, but against a person, I'm not for it in any circumstances. And everyone that watches this show knows I will vote for placenta over Donald Trump for president. But however, as I've stated many times, he would be a guy in my 20s I probably want to hang out with, and just, because you have no moral compass and you just want to be an idiot. But not the president of the United States. That being said, none of that warrants political violence against the president. I loathe his policies. I loathe his demeanor. I loathe his ability to lie without pause. But that doesn't mean that I would wish for an assassination attempt to be successful on the president. So the good news is that former President Trump, was not assassinated, and this is fantastic news. It was a miss, and now the conspiracy theories begin on both sides. This is why, my nephew had texted me. He's like, "I'm on my way back. You better do a live, man. You better do a live." And I was like, I'm going to hold my fire, because I just made the live stating that this moment in time should be remembered as a moment where we can talk about policy. And then boom, he texted me that. I didn't even know it happened. So I didn't want to just come out and say anything, because certainly I wanted to make sure the president was all right, and I didn't know any details. But it's amazing how many people suggest they do know details. And, I'm just going to buy that what I saw on TV, what I saw in the clips wasn't fabricated. And there was an assassination attempt on former Trump. Now, does that mean that all is lost for Democrats? I don't understand the conflation between the two. So you're going to see more people that are supporting Trump be sympathetic, but I don't see this pulling people in. And I'm not trying to, I hate to do political analysis on this, but I want to make it clear. I'm glad that President Trump is okay. I certainly wouldn't want him to be assassinated. Personally, I'd rather have him die in prison for the things he's done. But so an assassination attempt would be silly. I'd rather have him live for the crimes that he committed in behind bars. That being clear, no, this guy was a wacko, and the thing that's coming out now for me is seeing that the left is just as wacky as the right, saying, "Oh, it's faked," and it was catch up. And Dan Bongino, who I always kind of I have to respect his game. He runs something similar to what I'm doing, except he's wildly successful on the conservative side. You probably know he is. But, one of the first things he posted about was like, I've got inside information, and he's talking about the Secret Service. Now, granted, it would be like me talking about computer science or something that would happen in a data breach that I would be able to understand more to the level than maybe someone that doesn't work in the field. But certainly not being on that moment, I wouldn't be able to give you the exact details. And so you have folks like that pushing conspiracy theories about the Secret Service and how there's, the DEI inclusion kind of effort has withered away the Secret Service. And so he's got this inside information that the woman that was in charge, because she was a DEI hire, which is diversity, inclusion, and equity hire. I think that's what it's called. Ethnic hire, whatever it is. It's kind of like affirmative action, and Republicans have been hammering on this anytime they find a weakness in something. For instance, for a while they were talking about black pilots and being scared to get on a plane if a black pilot was there, because that would be just a diversity hire. So there's this movement behind it. So, of course, one of the threads that I find interesting is folks kind of stay in their domain, right? So Dan Bongino, ex-Secret Service kind of copy guy, probably pumping iron and, friends with Joe Rogan. Look, Joe, you're the king. I can't slam the king. But he probably just, does the UMC MMA thing and has survival kits and everything else. So he's that type of guy. Nothing wrong with that. I don't like his policies and his views. But he's bringing this thread out suggesting that the whole thing was because simultaneously something that the Democrats pushed while also being a weakness in the Secret Service. So look, I'm not going to go down that thread because I don't know anything about the Secret Service. But to suggest that all of a sudden it's, not some random hack that can do this. We know this is possible. And everyone wants to be an armchair quarterback. On the right, they're suggesting, it had to be a Democrat and they registered blue. They registered for this Act Blue thing. But in Pennsylvania, you can switch I don't know anyone who switches back and forth just to fucking register. I really don't. And I'm registered Democrat. I vote. It's just too much of a hassle to fucking register back and forth. So people are online suggesting, they happen to be from Malaysia, by the way. They're suggesting that, oh, yeah, Pennsylvania people swap back and forth. So this guy was definitely a Democrat and just playing the game. It's like, oh, they're fucking now speaking the mind. So people are hammering hard to get the party affiliation. What I find interesting, though, is no one's really looked into the religious affiliation of this gentleman. And when you look at the religious affiliation, you find it interestingly odd that it's so quiet. And what do you know? Well, I mean, he comes from a very Jewish background, a very Jewish area of Pittsburgh, went to a very Jewish school district, and he happens to be Jewish, and no one's talking about that. Now, had he been Muslim, we would be talking about that nonstop, and we would be talking about it in different light. But this person happens to be just a white male Republican who basically moonlights as a Republican, but a real Democrat. But however, unbeknownst to everybody, is also a Jewish person. Now, I'm not saying there's any reason for that, but it's an interesting omission that you'll see a lot of the places like omit. Mainstream media is not talking about the religious affiliation. And I don't know if it's important, but I think it's interesting that if there were any other religion, including Islam, or perhaps I don't know. I think just Islam, right? And that we would be talking about it. But since it's Jewish, Now, why is Jewish maybe relevant in this time? Because we got a lot of things going on with Israel, and certainly we have folks that are Jewish that are opposing the president. So maybe there's a thread of narrative that says, hey, this Jewish person had a vendetta. And this isn't conspiracy theory. This is just saying this is a thread I don't see anyone talking about, that we always go down this road for everyone else. If the person was, thank God this person who had, thank God they missed President Trump and they weren't successful. And thank God this president, I'm saying God because that's familiar for you. I don't believe in God, you know that. But thank God. Sorry, people will message me like, hey, you said thank God. Thank your higher power. Thank your higher power that this person wasn't black. I was like, I know basically black Twitter, black social media probably was like crossing their fingers. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Oh, yes. Okay. Thank God it's not black person. Because that would have just been another nightmare of creating a whole dissension of pain on black people. So, unfortunately or fortunately for white people, it's another white male shooter. Surprise, surprise. But the religious affiliation is ominously omitted everywhere. And if you know Bethel School District and you know where the student's from, the kid was from, you know that he was Jewish. There's pictures of him that are with a yarmulke on his head online. So, but the mainstream media is not going to talk about that. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, this is just interesting because right now there's a lot in the news about Israel and Gaza. And so, I don't think anybody would want bad press for anyone Jewish. Now, this person certainly doesn't represent every Jewish person. We know that. But it's interesting that this is an omission that I've seen every single mainstream omit it, other than there's a forum on Reddit that kind of doxed him first, and they basically determined the whole demographic. When mainstream picked it up, they just omitted that. So to me, that's interesting, and that doesn't seem fair, and I'm okay with that, but it doesn't seem fair that everyone's going after his political affiliation, and then they're omitting the religious affiliation when it could be more relevant than even if it were a Muslim because of right now what's going on in Israel. So I don't know. That's about the only conspiracy theory I'll chase. But for the left folks that are chasing it was staged and it was fake and, he had a cut beforehand. And I've seen all this stuff like it was a planned association. Listen, I'll take it. I see it. I read it in my inbox. But I'm not going down that rabbit hole to suggest that the president of the United States, the former president of the United States, actually was able to stage an assassination attempt that was a miss. I just don't think that's plausible. And so for those folks that are hoping, but I don't know why folks want to believe that. I really don't. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, why would you want to believe that it was staged? Like, okay, so it's staged. Now what? Does that make it, see, he lies about everything? I don't need this to be fake to know that he's not qualified as commander-in-chief. I don't need this to be fake. It's real to me, and I'm glad that he wasn't killed. I'm glad he wasn't assassinated. I'm glad the former president of the United States was able to, raise his hand in victory. All that stuff. It's great because he's alive to do it. So for me, that doesn't change the fact that he's a bad person and he's, a horrible president. And so I don't need to think, this is fake. I don't know. It just seems weird to have your cognitive bias be so deep. And we're against it on both sides. Listen, if you're watching and you're probably a fan of this, or maybe you're not by now, hopefully I don't have any fans, just haters. I need 1 million haters. But to suggest that this is fake is just as silly as Alex Jones or any of the people on the right that think in flat earth. It just isn't plausible. Occam's razor, it's a phenomena or a rule that says if the simplest thing is probably the truth. And so, it just makes sense that a person's a wacko. They have a gun. They're at a Trump rally. People don't think much of it because it's a Trump rally. And he's able to kind of get into position and do whatever he wants. Now, I don't know any of the logistics of this whole thing. But what I do know is it seems like really a lot to fake. And here's why this is so stupid as well. The Republican convention's coming up, and you always get a boost of the candidate during the convention. And so why waste a good moment right before the convention? You're going to get a boost in the Republican convention anyway. So strategically, it makes no sense to stage it at that time. If I was going to stage something like that, it would be after the convention or closer to the election where you get that bump, because we're going to forget about this. I mean, we forget about school children being killed in like a matter of 48 hours. What is it, 36 hours, and we're on to the next thing? I mean, as Trump knows, he's already went on to the next thing and picked his vice presidential pick in order to capture and contain that wave of media. He's an expert at that. One thing he's great at is capturing and sucking the action out of the room, which if you watched me on Saturday, I was literally fucking bragging about, you know what, this is a moment in time. Take your snapshot. We can talk about policy. This is good for everybody, even if you're an advocate. Great, boom. Some fucking dumbass white Jewish kid has to shoot the president. And I only say white Jewish Republican kid because that's the demographic. And thank God it wasn't a black Muslim. I mean, let's just be honest. And thank God the person wasn't successful and they were a bad marksman. So, I don't know how this plays out, and I hope the Secret Service listens to this and understands I am not in any way for advocating for violence for the president in any way. As much as I loathe President Trump, under no circumstances was I advocating for that shot to hit the president. And so, I think there was the one post that I made online about it was something to the effect of being upstaged by Richard Pryor or Richard Simmons being upstaged by the president. I know people might have got upset about that, but that's the only thing. And then I posted a post about the identity of the shooter. But I haven't posted it or sent publicly any public memes that make fun of the situation, because it's not a funny situation. Now, I see a lot of people moping around and talking about it, and they're thinking it's the end of the world. Look, we're going to forget about this. It's not the biggest. It's a big deal that he was safe, and of course, we want to make sure that the president stays safe. It's always a big deal when there's political violence. But we're going to move past, and we moved past January 6th where they stomped on the fucking Capitol. And we're already now rewriting history to say it was just a little bit of a political rally that got out of hand. I mean, so I'm not worried about the narrative changing. And it's not because I want people to forget about this assassination. It's just that we will forget about it. It'll be like, oh, yeah, he got shot. And people on both sides will stick to their guns that it was a conspiracy or some bullshit planned. And when it was the lone wolf syndrome, which is the most dangerous thing out of everything, is the lone wolf, the person that acts alone, that doesn't have any kind of affiliation, that just does this. And so for me, it's easier to see this being a possibility than being faked. And I'm also not going to go down the road of battering Secret Service to suggest that they did everything wrong when that's not my expertise. Perhaps Dan Bongino can, but I oftentimes think he is full of hyperbole and does nothing but chase conspiracy. So, as I said, the only thing I'm going to chase is the possibility that the media is omitting carefully the religious affiliation of the shooter. And it may or may not have any relevance to the case, but I would think that in this climate, you would want to know that a young person who may be pro-Palestine or maybe pro-Israel, especially with that movement being may have had some political motivation. So, who knows? But I certainly don't think it's warranted, and I am absolutely against it. Even if you're pro-Palestine, the way to get that done is through peaceful protest and continue to shut down systems that don't hurt or kill people as much as possible. So I am totally pro-peaceful, nonviolent methods of protest. This was an atrocity. It's very, very American history, though. We have had, I think, 6 or 7 attempts on presidents, not including the ones that actually worked. But we've had Harry Truman. George Bush had one that was thwarted. George H.W. Bush had one that was thwarted it was a bomb threat. Reagan had obviously the one that was thwarted. And then Nixon had one that was thwarted as well, believe it or not. And Gerald Ford had 2 that were thwarted. So it's not like they're uncommon. And it sucks, but we certainly know that America is prone to having these bouts of political violence every now and then. And the thing that we want to make sure of is that the rhetoric that we use isn't supporting it. And that's one thing. That's why on this show, no matter how much vitriol I spit, no matter how fucking angry I get, I always try to leave myself an out to say, look, this is about ideas. It's not about fucking the person of Donald Trump or the person of Mike Johnson or the person of Michael Steele or Barack Obama. It's about their ideas and how they're representing them and they're selling of them and their brand. And so, and for me, that's what I like to attack. And if it ever becomes to the point where people that listen to me think, oh, I'm advocating for political violence, they need to flip the channel, because I'm never going to say that. I think it's a war of ideas, and this is my battlefield right now. You can call me a fucking snowflake, but I'd rather choose words because they last longer than fucking bullets forever. They last forever. So anyway, just want to be clear that the good is really that he survived. The bad is that both sides are just rolling down this aisle of conspiracy. Meanwhile, Trump's doing a good job of capturing the momentum and naming his VP. And if we look into the VP, I mean, that is absolutely, I mean, insane. So this is the headline from HuffPost. Trump goes MAGA with VP. The interesting thing about J.D. Vance is you can find him in the early days of the Never Trump world being the Never Trump guy and just going full on Never Trump and stating that this could be the next Hitler and he's a demagogue and he's riding on the populist wave of people taking advantage of people's emotions. It's unhealthy. And so for me, J.D. Vance is one of those picks where it's like it represents complete hypocrisy. And this is where I've asked on this show, is it, as someone who's done all the vices, I joke about all the vices, is power one of those vices where I hadn't had enough of it that I wouldn't know what it is? Because this guy just all of a sudden got power. He's VP, potential VP of the United States, at least VP nominee. And so, in the party, and he flips his whole switch. I mean, we have it on record. The guy's young. Look at him. He's a young guy. I don't have it up anymore. Sorry. I just pull it up. Sorry if you're listening. You don't know what I'm showing. If you're listening, all I'm showing right now is a headline on HuffPost, a liberal rag, if you will. Trump goes MAGA with VP, big red letters, born-again authoritarian, election denier, anti-Ukraine hardliner, tight with Thiel. So Peter Thiel's the billionaire, kind of shady, runs Palantir, which is a AI military intelligence platform. So he's one of the founders, former funders of Facebook, and he's a multi-billionaire, but he's less visible than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, but he's one of those guys that's doing a lot with government contracts. So living off the government, the high end. We got the Republican convention kicking off this week too, which is why this whole notion of Trump and this being staged happening would be just political consultant stupidity. If you're going to stage something like that, don't do it during the week of the convention. You get a bump for the convention. Do it the week after. Do it closer to November. So even if they were that smart to stage it and they could do it and it'd be that stupid thing to do, obviously, this would be the wrong time to do it. So even for the dumbest of dumb political consultants, it doesn't make sense. What makes sense, though, is for Trump to announce his VP right now while everybody's focused and has sympathy towards him. He can just put this guy out there. We already forgot about Project 2025. We're going to be talking about, you look at the press, look at my feed, look at all the news places, all they're talking about. I mean, there was a special on fucking Hulu, right? The presidential assassination attempt, minute by minute. Now, granted, it's a big deal. I'm not suggesting it's not. But again, as I've said many times on this show, Trump has a knack for sucking the oxygen out of the room so that you can't talk about anything else. And of course, right at the moment when we're reaching that moment where I'm like making a special live, a Saturday afternoon live. You know I don't do Saturdays. I chill on the weekends. I do a fucking Saturday live. I say, hey, world, listen, my 58, we're at 58 YouTube subscribers listening to me. Tune in. They're all like waiting for me to say it. And I say this moment, hey, listen, by the way, this moment right now, we're actually serious about policy. And then boom, Matthew Crooks comes out of the gate, goes to a political rally and fucks it up for everybody. And certainly by putting a political assassination attempt on President Trump has helped elevate the President Trump amongst his base. They're not going to back down from this. They're certainly, if they were sitting on the sofa they're on the fence on it. Now they've got righteous indignation, which we know is unstoppable. So that's the only problem for Democrats with this assassination politically, is that it's just going to motivate a lot of people that already supported Trump. But to suggest that this is going to sway the election, I don't think that's the case, and I certainly don't think it was staged to do so. I think what we're at a moment where Trump has done what he does, and he's been under the circumstances on the receiving end of some rather good news, in that he survived an assassination attempt. But this does not take away anything from who he is or what he was or what they're trying to do. This is a moment in time that we have to say, all right, look, it doesn't matter if he's a complete asshole. He doesn't deserve to die that way. And certainly we're not advocating for that in any manner. We'd rather see him die in a prison cell, live long and healthy, and be able to suffer for the things we believe that he's done. But so anyway, we do not wish any kind of harm to the president in any manner. We want him to live a long, healthy life behind bars. Let's make that clear. And the Trump train is moving forward, capturing the day by riding the wave of the Republican convention, naming the nominee. Obviously, it's that time since the convention time. But, again, that's the bad. And the ugly, really, right now, is that we're faced with this situation where we've still got Joe Biden. Joe Biden did an interview today, and he's looking stronger. He's doing his thing, but we know what's going on. They're clips, they're edited, whatever. It doesn't matter. Trump is still a no-brainer. It doesn't matter if there's, we do not wish any attempts on any presidential candidate. But no matter what the situation for what happens on presidential Trump's campaign, it's not going to make him a viable candidate. And unfortunately, just because he dodged a bullet doesn't mean he's fit for commander-in-chief. It's just not one of my qualifications. Like, oh, wow, you survived because what's the alternative? Oh, you didn't survive one, so then what? You're out? Obviously, but I mean, that's just stupid. So for me, I'm happy that President Trump was not assassinated, but it doesn't change how I feel about him, and it doesn't change how short of a memory I'm going to have about this, because, again, when it happens to school children, I feel like we spend no time. You're not even allowed to say anything without people suggesting that you're just making everything political. So, that's where I stand on this whole thing. It's bad for the country because political violence is never good. It's good for Trump in that he survived. I don't think it's necessarily good for the country or good for Republicans or good for Democrats in any political way, other than, it's going to enforce and put righteous indignation in the base of Trump's MAGA voters to make sure that they get out and vote. And they were always going to come out and vote anyway. Now they're really going to come out and vote. And I hope that there's more of us than MAGA voters. So I'm not looking at this as, oh my, there's a political downfall to this. I'm just happy that President Trump wasn't assassinated, and I want to move past it as fast as possible and talk about the next thing. Not because I don't care about what happened, but because I think that we're already finding the press omitting major details. I mean, let's just be honest. They're missing a whole narrative that could possibly be a motive. We haven't even talked about motive yet. I mean, whether he's Democrat or Republican, people think, oh, if he's a Democrat, there's a motive. No, what was his motive? So we're not even getting into that yet. And I don't know if we will, because he's been executed, the shooter, which, again, I'm not saying was the right thing to do or not. But we're at this place, and I just want to be clear where I stand. I'm not going to jump down any conspiracy theories that people are sending me in my inbox to say, all right, this is fake. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's fake. I'm also not going to jump down and suggest that, oh, the security details sucked and this was planned and this is why it was planned. I'm just not going to go down that path. I don't know, have enough expertise. What I do know is political violence is a real thing, and if I've seen it on TV happen, and people have tried to gaslight me before on January 6th that was not what I was seeing. So I'm not going to let the left or the right suggest what I watched in the clips, say that it's not, a real assassination attempt. It doesn't change my vote. It doesn't make me sympathize for the president. It makes me happy that he was able to survive. And then I'm going to go back to business as usual. That's the thing. That's the thing. I'm found it interesting. The Biden campaign's like, oh, we're going to stop our campaign. Why? Don't stop your campaign. He survived. He's on fire. Basically, his camp is on fire. So keep going. There's no reason to stop a campaign. Why stop a campaign? This is, thankfully, the Biden campaign has nothing to do with this shooter. Obviously, Democrats don't have anything to do with the shooter. Republicans don't have anything to do with the shooter. The only person that might be responsible for the shooter is maybe the party or entities that suggest that we don't have to do anything about our gun laws. Maybe those folks are responsible. We're not going to go that route now because we're not allowed to, right? Anyway, the point is, no one should think that it's okay to execute another person, specifically, with political motivations. We know that things can get dicey and cause other ripples. And that's what people are walking around saying, oh, man, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Don't be scared. This is isolated. This is a wacko. We know there's wackos. They killed him. We move on. We can go back to criticizing Trump. We don't have to embrace him. There's no warm moment kumbaya shit. The kumbaya moment was, hey, look, he got a great fucking photo op. He lived. We're happy he lived. Now we can go back to criticizing him. It's the American way. Come on. So that's first. Tomorrow, I just wanted to get out that, that's all I'm going to say about the presidential assassination. I don't want to go down conspiracy. I don't know enough about it. I saw what I saw. I believe that it was an attempt on the President Trump's life. I'm happy that he wasn't executed, but I'm not going to follow the left or right down their fucking wacky rabbit holes. It's stupid. Come on. What the fuck? Like, you look as stupid as the right, and it really bothers me. And I know people on the left think that their righteous indignation puts them at this level, and it's just as sad as what I see on the right. I align mostly with liberal policies. What I don't align with is liberals that live in the same fucking bubble that right-wing people do and say, oh, I'm right about it. No, you're not. Like, you're saying that this thing was staged. How do you know that? You're saying it with such defiance. It sounds silly. It sounds flat earthy. So don't go down that train. And if you do the research and dig into it before you start posting it as facts, because you don't know. And I'm okay to look like an idiot and say, look, Nate, see, I told you so if the facts come out. But no one has the facts right now. And especially somebody online that saw the same, probably has access to the same information we all do. Anyway. We're equal opportunity, folks. Even though we might be a DEI hire, we don't give a fuck. We will slam both parties, both races, all genders, all your identities. We don't give a shit. We believe you all should piss in the same bathroom. That's all we know. All right, anyway, I'm going to get off. Tomorrow, I will talk about J.D. Vance. I had to have today just to put something out to tell the world, look, here at Smashing the Party, we are anti-political violence. We are anti-assassination. We are pro Joe Biden at this point until he's not the nominee, as long as he's kicking. It doesn't matter how many things happen on the Trump campaign. There's nothing that's going to convince or make me sympathize with Donald Trump and Project 2025 and the RNC platform, period, okay? I'm very, very happy, and again, I'll say this for the last time, that there was no death that resulted from the false or the assassination attempt on President Trump, and I believe no party had responsibility for this. No, it wasn't directed by the Democrats. No, Democrats don't have blood on their hands for this. This was one person, lone wolf, and that's it. Simple. We move on. We can talk about everything else now. Secret Service is going to do their due diligence. We can get back to criticizing the folks that are running for the most powerful position in the world. Tomorrow, I'll be back at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about J.D. Vance. I'm not going to just be, ramble. I got fucking receipts. I had it ready for today, but I don't want to conflate the two things, and I want to put a flashy, smart, witty title out tomorrow. But, I really, if you want to kind of get a little preamble for tomorrow, do some research on J.D. Vance. do a search with JD Vance and Never Trump. Pull up ChatGPT, have it pull up some narrative about JD Vance, and find out who the guy is. I mean, to me, he's just another avatar. He's just a person that is a shell of a person that will be, you know, these Republican officials learn how to slimily chameleon into whatever position they need to be. And so while he may have been a strong advocate for anti-Trump voice, it kind of helped elevate his position. He was a never Trumper, and then he kind of quickly got right with the party and now aligns with everything Trump does. And so now to be the vice president is interesting. We'll talk more about that. I don't want to get into it today. I'm already getting into it. Anyway, today was one of those days where I was just struggling a bit to get kind of over a couple humps that I had to do. So I appreciate everybody that's been in my inbox sending me positive vibes, especially the folks that have been giving me ideas to talk about. Mostly, I want you to know that I understand the level of quality has to be higher to compete with some of the online folks like Dan Bongino and Charlie Kirk and, you know, even Ben Shapiro. So I understand that there's a lot I got to do. And so I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm happy that I have the audience that I do. Please subscribe to me on YouTube. We're growing this thing. I don't want to jinx myself, but my Facebook numbers are almost at like, they're almost higher than what my personal ever was in monthly reach. So I'll throw that number out at the end of this month, but it's really good. It's not the highest it's ever been, but it's very high. So I appreciate all the love. I really do. I really need to grow my YouTube. We are actually at 58. When I started, we were at 42 or something like that. So look, every single YouTube, you can laugh. You know, you can see somebody with 10 million subscribers or 1,000 subscribers. You know they worked and they hustled for it unless they were already famous. So it's hard. But I know you guys have been through this with me, and I appreciate the support. Don't lose hope. Don't walk around moping. Of course, political violence sucks. It's not the end of the world right now for both parties. We're America. We fucking forget the shit. We'll pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. We'll keep moving. We get back to the game of criticizing ideas and not trying to kill each other. That's all I got for today. I will be back tomorrow at 10:30 p.m.
You're listening to Smashing the Party. This is your...
Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I got to turn this thing off.